welcome back. We're talking arts and culture today. We very much want you to be part of this conversation as well. Perhaps you're an artist, perhaps you're a performing artist, maybe you're even doing graphics or something in the creative industry. What are your thoughts? What are your concerns? What suggestions do you have that could perhaps help us unleash the economic potential of the arts? We'd like to hear from you. We have on stage with us here 3 people that are helping us have this conversation. We have the Minister of Arts and Culture, Natim Tetwa, Vuya Jack, Acting DG, and Yvonne Chaka Chaka, representing the entire creative industries. You perhaps know her as a singer, but she's talking on behalf of everybody today. And just before the break, we had a number of questions that were raised. Let's just try and get answers for those quite quickly, because I'm cognizant of time. Grants was raised, funding. I know that a lot of schools get started, lotteries and all sorts of people help, but after a while they don't become sustainable and then disappear. How can we keep them going? How can we keep them open?
Well, that is why our approach is that you need a sustainable approach insofar as the industry is concerned. That if you do things to upscale skilling in the industry and you invest in that, upscale the talent in the industry, as we said, that you have experts in different fields here, in the arts and culture. And we have people who have made it somewhat. And those people are the ones who are going to be incubating the up and coming. But our emphasis would be more on ensuring that you give people particularly skills, because I can tell you that with these millions you have in South Africa, each and every individual has an idea. A week at the office you get 200 proposals, 1 week. So if you would have grants for people, you would have to have, I don't know how much to cover all that. So that is why Mzansi Golden Economy, its major aim is to ensure that you meet those programs which are strategic for the nation, but also at the same time working with provinces so that all of us are part and parcel of the process of assisting the industry. But over and above that, as I said, there are systemic suggestions coming from the industry, which people have grappling with for a period of time. And we are saying that we are open to those. That is why we want them to come in an organized fashion, through an organized body, so that you are not called,
dealing with hundreds of people
all over. You are not all over this.
Okay, so Sisi Yvonne, I want you to answer this question. I can't tell you the number of times I've been to the theatre and it's half empty. And I can't tell you the number of times concerts have been called off because tickets haven't been bought. And I know that one of the pillars of your programs is audience development. How do we develop this audience? Is it Yvonne, that our artists are not serving up something people want to watch? Or is it that we just don't have a culture of going to these events? What's gone wrong with the audience?
Well, I think our South African people really love theatre. They want to go to watch music, they want to go and see sculptures and things like that. But we need to create platforms. We need to make sure that there's multicultural sectors. I mean, you find halls in the townships, which is where our people start. It's sad. Some of those halls have turned into churches because those people have got more money to pay. So we need to make sure that there are recreational centers, there are multi-purpose centers for our people. We need to create audiences. We need to make sure that things are advertised properly, and we need bums on those seats. We cannot not have our people have places where to perform. There's so many artists. We should not be sitting here today if there were no artists. There's so many young artists coming up. There's old artists, but above all, we've got more people who have done things. They have done these things on their own without funding. And when funding comes, it's like too late. People are sort of despondent and they don't want to do this. We're complaining of crime. We're complaining of people not working, but we in the cultural industry should be creating the work because we work for ourselves and we need the government to level the playing field for us.
Government, level the playing field.
Absolutely. The key is having platforms, and so you would have the incubators and the schools being able to help create the content. But the more platforms you're able to have, that is why we are looking at the MGE and having a window of having multiple of events on a regular basis and being able to also capture data in being able to understand what is liked by the audiences and be able to have a feedback mechanism so that our programming can be relevant and it talks to people's
Is it as simple as, I just get a sense that there's a culture of not going. They are advertised, Twitter, Facebook, radio, these events are advertised. The venues are there, but people are not showing up.
Well,
Market theatre is there, it's historic, we've known about it for centuries. All taxis lead to Joburg. Somehow we're just not going to the theatres.
Well, it's a culture. It's a culture. If you have a situation where in the past people were attending, you grew up in the township or the village, people were attending bioscopes in the halls, in the community halls in the townships. That culture was systematically killed. What we are saying is that we want to revive those cultural centers because most of them are there, multi-purpose centers are white elephants. Because people won't easily go to city, to the town. Not all of them would be able or afford to go to the city because there are other things, transport, and if things finish late and so on, how are we going to come back home? And so ours is to revive, that culture which is there in the villages where people are, in the townships where people are. And as the time goes on, you'll see people going back to where they were because they were there before.
All right, okay. Let's get 3 more questions, starting with Vanessa Perumal, table 16. Vanessa Perumal, table 16, where are you?
Good morning and thank you for the platform. I'm speaking with my hat on as an entrepreneur in the sector and wondering how do we use our businesses to influence economic impact? 2, as a journalist turned publicist, how can we use collective bargaining power in a digital era by becoming digital transformers to tell our stories when mainstream media won't? And how do we help each other along to find the value proposition that could make us influential businesses? Because the more money you have, the more influence you can have to influence social cohesion.
All right, you know what, I think let's deal with those questions, because they're quite a few to unpack there. So just comment if all of you, there's something to address to that.
Well, I would say that, again, if we start approaching things, she says we, and she knows that the major problem is that it's been I most of the time in the industry. That I is killing the industry, because what the I does is that a skewed view and an approach from authorities happen, that people will think that it's only you and other few people in the industry when it's not. But if, as you say, how do you together put your hands together? From the government point of view, we are determined to level the playing field, and we'll do everything in our power so that you are able to thrive from your own perspectives. Because as I said, one of the positive things in the sector is that you have experts, and I see they are here, most of them, and they have answers of what needs to be done, and they will tell you where did things go wrong, and ours is to correct that which went wrong.
And the entrepreneurs, how can they be helped? I'm finding the private sector is sitting with tons of cash, and for some reason they're not investing in the arts. Some are, and I'm going to hear from Michelle Constant just now, who deals with business of the arts, and I want to get a take from her. But how do we encourage the private sector to join the party? Because they, in Hollywood, they're lining up to invest in film, in theatre projects and so on and so forth. How do we get the private sector to do that, to help these budding entrepreneurs? I know you've talked about incubators, but what else can we do to really engage?
Business model innovation, relooking at our business model for the creative enterprises, be able to say, what is our value proposition? Who are we targeting? And what are the channels that we are using to get to them? And also being able to utilize the platforms that are available to minimize the cost while finding different revenue streams. So the critical thing is being then able to harness that attention capital. The arts attract quite a lot of attention capital. And what these markets like Hollywood have been able to do is to monetize that attention capital. And therefore, the link between the two would then be relooking at our business models and making sure that we are able to monetize the attention capital. And that way, then you're able to attract advertising, you're able to attract more business, sponsorships, and so forth. And of course, tax incentives play a big role in that. Section 18A, if we are able to open it up and be able to say, let's allow the donations that businesses make to be allowed as tax deductions, that will open up quite a lot of funding to the sector.
Well, I think I want to agree with Vuyo. Thank you to the Davis tax levy that is going to help our people. But it becomes very sad that you then find when there's like a wine expo or big curators when are there, it becomes for the elite. It becomes for those who can afford, and they're the ones who come to your Senton Convention Center. What about those people who make these sculptures, these arts? Where are they in the value chain? They get paid 20 rands. Somebody takes it to New York or wherever, and they sell it for hundreds of thousands of rands. So why can't we make sure that even those people from the bottom are skilled properly and they are taught so that they can be part of this? I mean, for an example, you go to the Standard Bank Arena, when they do all your Gough and all your who's Picasso and all of those, we've got our own Picassos here. So where is the playing field being leveled? So we really, Minister, we really have to go back to the drawing board and say, this needs to be done. We cannot have our artists dying paupers. It's not fair. We as artists as well, we need to take ourselves seriously, we need to take our art seriously, but we need you to say the level field is leveled. It shouldn't be one person getting the money. We've got great promoters here, your Peter Cladis and your other people, but you'll find that, unfortunately, sorry, but money is still in the white hands, Minister. It is true. It will be white promoters who will get more money and they'll bring those influential artists to come to South Africa. Now we need to make sure that when Yvonne Chaka Chaka performs or anybody, Mzwakembuli or wherever, the stadium is full. Why shouldn't it be like that? So you'll find white promoters will get more money from the corporate sector and black promoters do not get sufficient money. You have your Freddie Nyatellas who will come and fight to be part of this. Minister, it should come to an end. Otherwise I'm going to be 50 next year. I'm too old.
So, Minister, we're going to level the playing field.
Absolutely, no, that's important. In fact, even the people he's referring to who have been raising issues in the industry and with ourselves as the department are the ones who are now central in the process, because we believe that something needs to be done from our side, but you are correct also to say other people, the corporate world, must also come. It doesn't mean that they are not part and parcel of the process of assisting, but maybe we can do better and more along the lines which both Vuyo and Yvonne is raising, particularly on the programs we are talking to of those who are up and coming, those who are out there struggling in our communities, that those are the people we need to focus on.
All right. Well, let's go to Michelle Constant. I'm not sure what table you are. Michelle, if you want to stand up. I know you have a question. She's with Business Arts South Africa. Michelle, there we go. You can ask your question, but I'm also going to ask you, business, is it coming to the party beyond looking at arts as a CSI project? And that's what I'm seeing generally, is that it tends to be, you know, we need to...
Sorry, Peter, I'm going to jump in right there. I want to say thank you very much to some of the very pertinent things that have been said. I would like to disagree around a business. In fact, yesterday we saw ABSA open a fantastic exhibition of a young developing artist called Bambo Sabir. Recently, we've seen Standard Bank exhibit the likes of the great heritage artist Peter Clark. We've seen other banks exhibit the works of Gerard Sokoto. So I think this jump in and constant attack of business is distressing, to say the least, because they are doing very good work. You mentioned Peter Tladi. The Joy of Jazz is one of the biggest festivals in this country. That is a black promoter, and they are being funded by Standard Bank. So I would like to respond to that. The second thing is, you say that you think that the majority of money is coming from CSI. That is actually not true. What we've seen over the last 10, 20 years is that, in fact, the money has come out of the marketing budget. So on the one hand, that's a very good thing, because then that shows that business sees that the arts has a value above the line. On the other hand, that's not a good thing. We're in a current economic climate. We're seeing growth growing at 1.4%. And essentially what that means is that businesses are shutting down on the one thing they think they can cut away on, which is their marketing budget. So what we have to start seeing is a shared value, a value where business can see the arts and what the arts offers in society, but we also have to be able to see what the arts can offer business. So it needs to be shared, and it needs to be a real engagement on that sense. Very briefly, I do have a question, and I suppose it's a technical question for the Minister. We have recently heard that the DTI is putting an amendment forward on the national lotteries, where they're looking to cut the arts funding from 30% to 20%. This is a massive loss for the arts sector, and it will impact dramatically, given that the majority of arts organizations, not just in the urban areas, but the peri-urban and rural areas, get a lot of their funding from lotteries. And I wondered, Minister, if you had managed to engage with Minister Rob Davies around this, because I think that the arts sector should be up in arms about this, and they should be deeply, deeply concerned.
Okay. Thanks. But perhaps let's start with the first one. It's not an attack per se. I don't think we should take that business is being attacked. One of the weaknesses which is there in the entire system is to get out there and publish whatever people are doing. Because as long as people don't understand what each one of us is doing, people will be justified to say, no, you are not doing anything. You government are not doing anything, or you business and so on. But secondly, the point you are raising is a very important point. And again, we are engaging on that. One of the problems is that you have people who are practitioners who are not satisfied with what government is doing, with what everybody else is doing, because most of the things do not reach them. You have a situation where government is looking at what has been handed out by arts and culture per se. And people come to a conclusion to say, no, but this thing has not helped the entire area of arts and culture, or even some of the things which are deals and so on are not really tangible in the industry. So what do you do? And some of the things you had to take back whatever you were supposed to utilize. We are dealing with that within government, and especially with my counterpart, my colleague, Minister Davies, insofar as that is concerned. But what this says also is that let's get more organized as arts and culture, so that the intended people are happy themselves, which are practitioners.
I know I know that we have Selom Make Kanube in the audience here, and I want to get a sense, because every once in a while the plight of actors comes up. More recently, it was Generations that sort of brought it to the fore. And I've worked as a contract person many times over life, and you can't go to the bank minister and get credit because they say, you're a contract worker, once your gig is over, what do we do with you? And so we're stuck. I just wonder if Selo is here, if you could just stand up and what is the plight of the actors? I think this generation thing ended up being us versus them, and people were taking sides. But as an actor, you've survived because you're pretty good at what you do, I guess. But what are some of the challenges that actors are facing that you would like to see change?
Well, I wanted to remain in obscurity.
I know.
Honorable Minister and ladies and gentlemen, I think the actors are really getting a raw deal. And I have found it quite disturbing that what happened to the 16 actors just recently, somehow the country and I guess institutions became toothless to actually help the industry. I was even more sad for my colleague Sophie Ndaba, who spent 20 years in that series. And basically, when it comes to, let me put it this way. When somebody is going to be employed to be a CEO, they get a package before they even do the job. We actors, we spend 5 years and 6 years or many years in a production. We don't get a package, we just remain on contract throughout. How do we buy houses? How do we have medical aids? And all the things that people are entitled to. So I think, I guess, SIFSA is underway, and we hope that in time, the actors also will have to stand together. And one of the things that we also have to address is the quality of work that we produce. And sometimes artists, we produce shoddy work. And I think we've got to make sure that we produce good work. I mean, in the past years, I think a lot of artists have been funded. But when you look at the work that they produce, we've got nothing to show for it, and millions have been spent. So those are some of the things I think as artists, we have to be able to speak truth to ourselves and make sure that we elevate the country. Business has got to arrive. I mean, if business doesn't know what the arts does, it will help with crime in one way or the other. Because as South Africans, we have never had the opportunity to reflect on ourselves, to look at ourselves in the mirror and fix ourselves. And arts has the opportunity of doing that. Michelle was talking about Gerard Scotto's work have been, showcased. But there are other beautiful artists. We don't actually have to look at history. We are making history at the moment. And those new artists have got to be given the opportunity. And
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Just before I get a response from you, Sisivon, you talked about promoters. And the reality is, look, he's just said our performers have to perform, but also some of our promoters are taking money and they're not being as honest as they could be. We need to fix that as well.
Well, I'm sure, obviously back to Michelle, it's not attacking a business. I know business does a lot of work, but all I'm saying is that you need to sort of decentralize that. What is done in Sandton should be done down in Ulu, in Minga, in Hampashele, out there, because those artists are there. Well, for promoters, we've got Sam Mangwani there, we've got Peter Tladi there, we've got, they're there. Please answer, where do you take the money to? I'm not a promoter.
Yes.
I'm a mere artist.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that, Peter, if government gives you this much, this is what I need to pay. Artists have to bargain. And sometimes some of these promoters have got their favorites.
Yeah.
You'll have one artist performing in 25 shows, and you forget that there's Prosper, there's somebody out there. And so, Peter, can you please answer that?
Okay. Can we get to the microphone to Mr.
Or Sam
Tladi?
Mangwane is someone
You have
sitting
been provoked. So, where are you, sir? There he is, sir. Where are we going? Okay, all right.
But we know that these people do create lots of jobs as
All
well.
right.
You know, that should be recognized. But the money
Okay.
part,
All right. If you could just stand up, say your name, and then respond.
Yeah, thank you very much. The name as usual is Sam Mangwane. It's just a pity, you know, some of us have been hanging in the industry or in the profession because we love it. You know, what is said about artist, whether he wakes up to make a cent or not to make anything, he wakes up every morning and go to the same spot. The same thing happens with the promoters. I mean, I can tell you, we have been doing our show for 17 years. And the saddest thing, we do not need to go and complain to anyone, but because we love, I like to see artists working. I like to see artists earning a cent. I like to see artists at the end of the day saying, at least if that show comes once a year, I will be employed. Sometimes it is things beyond us that we will say, this one will attract more people. We are caught in that muddle. Don't forget, this is also business. We do not want to say, this one will bring me more people than the other one. So those are other logistics that we consider because we say, will I be able to pay everyone? Because it doesn't help me to put up a show, and at the end of the day, I cannot pay you your balance, Yvonne, because you will take me in the paper and say, Brasema Ampatala, and art promoters are culprits of that. When we don't pay you because the business has gone very, very wrong, we are taken to the paper. And we cannot explain our situation because it's a question of saying, when next? And I mean, look, how can I survive with one show a year? I know the Department of Arts and Culture has been carrying us for the past years, and if they were not there, we would not be hanging. We are only hanging there. You know, I can challenge each and everyone here that if you can go and check our finances for 17 years, we have never made a profit. Every year, we put up a show. At the end of the show, I can tell you, I'm talking now, we are owing something like 300, 400,000 to the service providers. And you know, you can imagine where it is taking us to, but we are just praying that God must help us to be able to soothe them because they will liquidate us. You know, and we have so many problems we have to deal with. We need to deal with the issue of SAMRO, which is becoming a hassle to us. They say we must pay something like 2% of the gate taking. We don't make profit. If you talk 2% of the gate taking from Drakensberg, and at the end I'm owing 3% to the service providers. Who is going to go down? It's me. So we are trying to deal with that issue, and if that issue is not being looked at thoroughly, we are going to close shop. Okay. We are going to close. I can tell you, sometimes people think when they come to Muritili, they see a lot of people filling that place. They say, Oprasem have made money. We don't have anything, you know. We smile, but when you meet us in the street, we smile because you cannot be a very good businessman. When people say to you, did you do well? And you say, I didn't do well. They will say, you must close shop. Okay. So we're just doing it for the love of it. And we are happy that we are being sustained by the government. But as you say, the business people do not come to the show. Let them share the cake with us. If they can sponsor the other show. I don't need to mention name. Let them sponsor the other.
Okay.
Our other shows as well, because some of us, our budget is 7 million. And if the department and Sports, Arts and Culture sponsor me for 3 million, where do I get the 4 million to balance the other one? Okay. It doesn't balance.
All right.
So, thank you.
All right, so just before I get a response from you, the people's poet, Mzwake Mbuli, is with us. He'd like to comment as well. You're on table number 14. Let's just get your thoughts. And Bra Jonas Gwangwa, a little bit later on, I'd like to hear from you as well. You kept me alive when I was in London and I was homesick. I'd put on my Jonas Gwangwa CD and I felt good. So I want to hear from you as well. The people's poet.
Honorable Minister, thank you very much. This meeting takes place when the country celebrates its 20th anniversary. But you need not to forget, because you are counting 20 years, where are we coming from? Why are we not saying 10 years or 40 years? It means we are coming from a previously situation that was oppressive to all of us. We, for many years, under apartheid.
Can you put your... We know you have
for many years.
Yes, yes.
We spoke about the doors of learning and culture to be opened. We never envisaged a situation that after 20 years, the SABC will play more foreign music than South African music. It only happened in 2010, when there was a lot of music from the continent and in the country at large. And this creates a problem. The artists out there are disillusioned. I hear you talk of business. Let me give you a big name in the gospel terrain. Vuyo Mokoena died. I think he stayed a long period at Lensfield Hospital. The medical aid exhausted. And we went public when we appealed to everybody, to South Africans, that Vuyo was dying, the medical aid was no longer helping. And Vuyo Mokoena died. We marched on the streets of Bloemfontein to appealing, No one came forward. In fact, Vuyo Mokoena died. Miriam Makeba collapsed on stage. At that age, in terms of African culture, she was a granny, but still she was not supported. We will talk of people who die as paupers. Lucky Dube did not die as a pauper. Lucky Dube was the most successful artist in this country. Unfortunately, last month we're celebrating the anniversary of his death. Now, to say to us, it's 20 years after democracy. The SABC, it says you are barking at the wrong tree. Talk about ICASA. They are not responsible for the quota. Since Comrade Nelson Mandela, President Mandela, 1997, we marched at the Union Building. We raised issues that we are raising here. 1997, when Madiba was the president of the country, we marched. Howard Belling was the lawyer of the Musicians Union. And it's 2014. 2014. What is happening in South Africa? 3-4 years ago, the president of the country called all of us and the ministers here at Sente. Let me give you an example. We had an awards last week on the 1st of November. A week before the awards, at the Bice line, we paid 26,000 for rehearsals. 26,000 for rehearsals. Now, if you talk of the aspirant young coming artists, where are they going to get the money? It's not going to happen. In the arts, in the sports, it's bad news for black skin. Fortunately, I'm progressive. I talk non-racialism. But when it comes to the white artists, they don't struggle. Chet Licho, you can get all the Olympians from international Olympics. They get even sponsors. The other day, the other guy got a brand new A8 or something, Audi. Take Caster Semenya and other black guys, Mulwaluti. They die paupers, these guys. So we cannot say Lucky Dube died a pauper, because there's always this thing that we die as paupers. Livon Chaka Chaka will never die a pauper. She's rich. She's married to a doctor. But something needs to be done in this country. I'm glad that we have a new administration that is accessible. We hardly 3 months. The Minister of Arts and Culture, the new DG, they are actually moving as we speak. But I hope they will, because their predecessors, there were problems before. I'm openly saying, some of us boycotted, stayed away to the Department of Arts and Culture because the treatment that was there. So, fortunately, things are beginning to happen. There's a ray of hope. But we are saying, once again, if business people are saying they put money with it, some of us are blacklisted. You must remember, under apartheid, we said we stood against the fact that we're all settlers are going to Grahamstown Arts Festival. So we refused to perform there because the preamble was wrong, that we were all settlers. Some of us did not consider ourselves as settlers in this country. Hence, we were blacklisted. SABC were blacklisted. But now I'm saying, let's address the question of the quota. South Africans must play the music. This is the one country where money is getting through Samro, outside to R. Kelly, etc. South Africans worship foreigners yet as though they are not superior human beings. We need to be treated as humans. The country will be judged by how it treats its artists. Thank you for the new administration.
Okay. We forgot to say ray of hope, ray of hope, ray of hope. So, a number of questions that he raised there, and I just wonder if you can address some of those. Yeah.
Well, the issue of the local content and the quota, from the point of view of the Ministry of Communications, already we have made advances to say that let's get everybody to respond to this question in a way that it has been raised, because Zwakhe Mbuli is correct. What is being said here is not new. There's nothing really new which is being said here. It's problems which have been there, which I think that we don't have a choice but to do everything in our power to address it. But the bigger problem is what I started with, transformation of the industry. If we miss that point, we would have missed a lot. Because if you
what does transformation mean?
If you look at different sectors, domestic sector, for instance, or the farm workers, we have sectoral determination in those industries. There is no such here. And there is no reason why we shouldn't investigate how do we make it to be at that level. How do we ensure that people are accredited correctly? Because it's not true that everybody would be used equally like anybody. Mark Ekangube is correct there. It's what you give to the public. People are not going to say, we want Nati to come and perform when Peter is performing better. People are going to say, we want Peter today, they will want Peter tomorrow. So there are things we need to look into and understand the complexity of the industry. For instance, in government, we have to account. There's PFMA. And one of the things you need to do is to get out there and get 3 quotations. But the industry is complex, because people would say, no, we don't want 3 quotations, we want that singer. Not the other ones we are putting in the list. No, we want this one. So you need to address that. So I'm saying that part of what vigorously would be doing is to look into the details and the nitty-gritties of what is it that needs to be changed from a legislative point of view. What is it that you need to regulate as government, so that at the end of the day, you are able to say, whatever you are doing, we have done our part, we have leveled the playing field. And I'm hopeful. Also, I would say there's a ray of hope to me, or from my side, because we have people who have come together in this process, who are the likes of Zwakhe Mbuli and others, Kitsitole and so on, who understand the industry, whom, when everything fails, would also point fingers to them. No, but you are part of the process. Why are these things not happening?
There's some artists that are saying that local quota should be increased from 40% to 80% on public and community radio stations, 25% to 75% on private sector. Is that doable? I mean, 75% and 80% local content?
So what our key strategy should be and is we have to help artists create that more content, because when then they say we need to increase it from this level to that level because we have a lot of content that can actually be utilized. So how we provide the tools to create that content is the critical element that would then support such an increase. And it also shuts people's mouths to say, where's the content? Then we can point to them and say, here is the content. Therefore, you cannot have an excuse not to be able to play the content. And so also, how do we help the artists, as Siloka Makungube said, develop from a technical perspective, but also from the sustainability perspective, so that it becomes almost automatic that people want to utilize that content. And so that's a
All right. I know Leanne's got a question that has come through the studio in Johannesburg. Leanne?
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I must say there's quite a few comments and questions that have been coming through from viewers who are really enjoying the conversation that you're having there. So well done for capturing the attention and the hearts of many people. And I think the arts, we've spoken about it before, certainly is the center of any country, and we need to push it more as much as we can. Here is one from Tumelo Kumako saying, when arts and culture sponsor and fund an event, exactly what causes the delay for payments for the artists? What's the problem? Why does it take so long? There's one of the questions. That's from Tumelo. Another question that's coming through from, I'm not sure about this one, but perhaps maybe more that are involved in this industry can shed some light. Say, Mr. Irvin asking, I'd like to know, is our South African music industry run and controlled by a secret society like the Illuminati? Not sure about that one, Mr. Irvin, but nonetheless, I have posed your question. He's comparing this to the likes of America and Europe, somewhere along the line. Here's another one. JJ Tebane. He's asking, how will Minister Mthethwa, in practical terms, ensure that artists do not die like paupers? Well, there's a good question for you. There's lots more, but I think that's more than enough for you right now, because I'm sure there's lots also coming from the audience. Peter, it's back to you.
Okay, all right. Let's try and get as quick responses as possible so we can get through questions on the floor as well. So the first one, I suppose with the promoters, if they're handling the shows, they're the ones that have to deal with the payments. But where government has joined the party, why are there these delays in paying the artists? Any ideas? Vuyo, Minister?
So, as we are governed by the PFMA, which prescribes certain requirements for information, that you need to also have certain documentation that is provided. And so, while they might be, for example, delays in getting some of the information, because if you release money without having that information, then it becomes irregular expenditure. And so that sometimes can delay payments. However, then we are relooking at saying, how do we make sure that we are able to, for smaller kind of grants, we make the process much more easier while meeting the requirements of the PFMA, because there is that flexibility given. But when you're talking big amounts, you need to make sure that you're always going to get value for money and that you meet the regulatory requirement in order to avoid regular and
like submit a tax number for a start.
Absolutely, tax and so forth. Because when you get support from the fiscus, you also need to be paying tax. So tax clearance certificates need to be provided. So there are those registration issues that need to be sorted from the artist's point of view. But also we need to come and play our part as government to make it much more easier for artists to be paid.
Okay, maybe the Illuminati is not running the music industry, but I sometimes do get the feeling that there is a caucus, a small group of people that control the bulk of the industry. Is that the case, or is that just a perception?
Well, you know, as both the Minister and the DG have said, when people give themselves out there, you know, you have to be as professional as possible. I've always said to people, there'll always be one Mary Makeba, or one Mzwake, or one Sahara. But when people put an effort in whatever they do, it becomes very important. So even us, the people in the arts and culture, I think we need to understand that when, like any other worker, but as I said, government level the playing field for us. We have to take it upon our hands we can't say tomorrow will cater for itself. Let's cater for ourselves now, because we can't always be complaining. If the people in the arts are complaining, teachers are going to complain, nurses are going to complain. So that's why it's important to belong to CIFSA. Let us have a home, then we can have a bargaining power, because we must look after ourselves. If you make money today, know that tomorrow you may not. So it's not that it's controlled by the few people. But coming to the airplay, today you go to the DRC. It was Seseseko Maputo who said in the then Zaire, no other music, accept my people's music. That's why today the music in the DRC, it's so popular because it was flooded. People listen to. You come to South Africa, our children emulate what they see on TV, what they hear on the radio. Now, if they constantly hear Rihanna and Beyonce, they will think those are the people. They'll forget that Miriam Makeba exists. Do know where Osibongile Kumalo. So, Minister, you need to be talking to your counterparts to say, if you guys do this, my people do suffer. Because really, we can't be always hearing American music in this country. We need to hear Yomzwaki Mbulis. We need to hear young artists who are really suffering, who go door to door with their demos. Now, let's change this whole thing. Whether it's from advertising's point of view or it's from big record companies, charity begins at home. More music, more local content. Let's do it, because if we don't, we're going to be judged by the next generation. 10 years later, we'll still be sitting here. They'll be quoting Yvonne Chaka Chaka. Miriam Makeba will be gone. They'll be quoting Zahara. It will not end. Let's change the goalpost.
Okay, Minister, just to add to that, there was a comment from the table that I managed to sit with before, and a comment that came through is that we are confused about who we are because of what we're seeing on TV and listening onto radio. How do we fix that?
Well, not only on TV and radio. Right now we're talking about the sector, but understandably we've concentrated on one aspect. It also goes to other areas of life, like our education. Local content would be equated to how we also use our own indigenous languages, how we communicate. We take our kids to schools, which were former Model C, because we want them to be better educated, and that's good. We should do that. But continuing then coming at home and finding Peter saying, no, don't talk to my kid in Setswana. He doesn't know a thing about Setswana because he speaks English. Uthemba akasazi Isitswana, isiZulu. Now, it's an effort of a society that those things which our Israel colonizers failed to do, we are helping them to happen. Because we are promoting things that few years down the line, there will be no Setswana speaking person, there will be no Zulu speaking person, and so on. It goes with the content of our own broadcasters. That's why I was saying that was one of the things we have raised with our colleagues, that let's look into this thing, because it also talks to who we are, our own identity. And we must always preserve our identity and fight for that, because it's not being smart not to know your roots, where you come from. Okay. It's good to know other things, but you must know who you are.
All right. One important question I'd like to get in. Victor Molele, table number 2. An important question. Table number 2, Victor Molele.
First, I'll ask a question.
Very briefly, because we don't have a lot of time.
Very briefly.
Okay.
Short question.
Yeah.
Short answer to that question.
Okay.
And an answer to that question as well. What is happening? Why is sport so well supported and other art forms not? That is the question. And this is the answer. It is because sport is visible. Every weekend we see soccer and so on and so forth. We're now going to December. Soccer bosses will be traversing the whole country looking to unearth talent. What are the artists doing? You get a very promising youngster from the township who can write. But for that youngster to write, then something must happen. He must fill in forms, application forms and so on. But for an upcoming soccer star, there is no filling of forms. We look at talent. Yvonne here talked about, putting bumps in the theaters and so on. And everybody supported that, Unless there is talent, I can't just go and sleep in the theater. I must go there and see what I enjoy. But unless we really unearth talent across the board, then we'll always have the mediocre performance in the arts. Thank you so much.
All right, before you answer that question, can I go to Brad Johnny Mekwa, because he's unearthing a lot of talent. He's on table number 6. I know that you're working very hard, started off in Davidton, you're now in Benoni. What is happening to this talent that you're nurturing and teaching and developing?
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you, Peter Ndoro. This talent, most of them, you find these kids are playing all over the world. And I've got Peter Tlali, who can bear me out. I've got Salimani here. That we have so much talent in our country that most of the schools are closing down because of lack of funding. Because you can imagine, what is it that a child who comes from an informal settlement and he comes to the music school, he hasn't had anything to eat. And how does that child learn the whole day? But when you listen to that kid play, you get tears rolling down your face that, oh, what talent. I've got Brad Jonas here. You can bear me out. So hence, my question was that it is time that the Department of Arts and Culture really sits on Lotto to establish endowments for established music schools, so that every year we shouldn't be struggling for funding, because we have to apply for money. They take 10 months before to, reply us. Can you believe that we've been operating without funds the whole year? You look at the music, one of the schools, the Music Academy of Gauteng. People marvel when they see that school. That school has got a state-of-the-art recording studio. It's got an auditorium, and it's all in our own, endeavor. We really say, no, we can't wait to get the government to do, to pay. No. But we are appealing to government now to establish the endowments so that, we reach other children. There's millions to be reached in this country.
Okay.
And our next biggest export in this country will be our young talent.
Okay.
No
Thank
doubt
you,
about
Brad
it.
Johnny Mekwa,
Thank you.
a legend in his own lifetime. So, talent is coming through. Some of it, actually, they're filling in forms. We're missing the plot. Some is being taught by the Brad Johnnies of this world, but the schools are closing down, so we're not catching them. How do we fix this?
Well, you said this earlier on, that one of the things we need to do is to implement that we are conceiving. Because as the comments were coming, it was clear to me that what is lacking is implementation. Because the academy, Nakisa as an academy, and the schools of arts and culture, those things have been conceptualized over a period of time. What needs to be happening now is to see them being implemented and action out of that. So I think that we don't have much, because, as I said, the kind of questions which are coming are not new questions. It's questions which have been there, and not that there are no answers. They've been responded to, but not in a way. Some of them have been dealt with, because government can do so much. Society, if there was a call, for instance, for an artist like Vuyo Mgwena, as Mzwake was saying, that there's been a call for that, for people to come to the party. It's what society must start understanding, that This is for the best of society itself. It's for the best in building a nation. It's for the best for progress of society. It's not only for artists or people who are in that field. Any other person should come to the party and ensure that indeed we together confront the problems. But the questions which have been asked earlier on, I think they are answers more than questions of what needs to be done.
All right. Sis Yvonne, one question for you. And, again, I've been exploring this whole thing, and I got an answer that why there's a Nollywood and why there's a Bollywood is because the producers there are not waiting for government to do anything for them. A Niger man just makes a plan and just gets on with it. Do we need to inculcate that perhaps a lot more here?
Well, obviously, a Nigerian man will say, Kaki cannot be leather.
Yeah.
And we know that. My brother here, you know that. Kaki cannot be leather. But I think it's important that we as well, we should stop blaming government. We should start doing things for ourselves. Government will never help us if we are not organized. I think we in the creative industry, it's high time that we tackle the bull by the horn and start organizing ourselves so that when government comes, when business comes, it's cherry on top. We can't sit there and cry foul. This is our industry. We work for ourselves. 20 years ago, we, the people in the creative industry, were called vagrants. Today, we do pay tax minister, so let our tax money work for us as well. Yes, we do pay our VAT and things like that, but it becomes a huge problem when the very same government you work for and they take 90 days to pay you. Can that come to an end, DG? Pay us on time, because really, some of the business people here are small business, and if things are not done correctly, they fall by the wayside. Right. So we really try. I know BASA does a lot of good work. We need to make sure that NHC, National Mamangop, you're funding somewhere there. I see your chairperson is here. All the agencies, Mangojo, you are here. All the government agencies, we should know who they fund
together.
And how the funding
Unfortunately, Sis Yvonne, we've run out of time, and this is what usually happens with these kinds of discussions. But ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, I'd just like to say thank you very much indeed to the Honourable Minister of Arts and Culture, Najim Tetwa. Thank you very much indeed. Sis Yvonne Chaka Chaka, singer, businesswoman, and social activist. Thank you so much. And acting DG, big boots that you're filling there. Vuyo Jack, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us today. And that's where we're going to have to leave it. Thank you for watching at home. And I guess you can carry on this conversation at Morning Live SABC, hashtag TNA BizBrief if you want to keep chatting about this and bringing up those points. Thank you so much to the audience here. Have a great day, everybody, and have a great week ahead as well. Take care. Bye-bye.
Wow, there you go. I think a very candid discussion on the state of arts in the country. And, you cannot take away from the fact that we have some of the most incredible actors and actresses, musicians here in the country. And I'm just highlighting two sectors of the arts, because this is such a massive industry that so many people are employed by, but it has to be taken more seriously.